Among the many films that characterize Korean history, one of the most notable is Malmoe, The Secret Mission, which roughly translates to collecting vocabularies. This film, created by director Eom Yu-na, was released on January 9, 2019, and it earned a rating of 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb. This film is an ideal blend of comedy and history, with charming characters like Pan-soo, played by Yoo Jin, and Ryu Jung-hwan, played by Yoon Ki-sang. This 2-hour and 15-minute movie is set in Korea in the 1940s, and it surrounds the story of Pan-soo, an illiterate pickpocket who is a single parent in Korea. By coincidence in his past relationship with Mr. Jo, he ends up working for the Korean Language Society. He even learns how to read and write in Korean, which was banned at the time. His character is at first deeply contrasted by Ryu Jung-hwan, who is the leader of the Korean Language Society and who firmly believes that a Korean dictionary will unify the Korean people despite Japanese oppression. These two characters with completely different personalities realize that they must work together, and after several blunders, Pan-soo even resorts to asking his friends for their different dialects in order to help create this dictionary. Historically, there were several drafts of the first Korean dictionary, which was called the Dictionary of the Korean Language, and the Hangul Society played a large role in finalizing the dictionary, even after many of those who worked on this dictionary were tried by the Japanese. In 1910, Korea was annexed by the Empire of Japan up until 1945, the end of World War II. And during this time frame, Koreans experienced countless forms of suppression on their culture and freedom. Schools, in particular, prohibited the teaching of the Korean language, and teachers, as shown in this film, conducted their classrooms in a militaristic manner, encouraging and ordering their students to show loyalty towards the Emperor of Japan.
すいません。皆遅れている月謝を払うまでは学校に来ようなどと思わんように。分かったか。だって。すいません。すいません。だって。学内で朝鮮語が禁止されたのがいつの頃。慶城第一中学の学生ならそれこそ全ての面で最も忠実な故国市民にならなければならない。
Children were forgetting their mother tongue, and because their parents were usually illiterate themselves, they never had the opportunity to learn how to read and write in Korean. Even films had to be in Japanese, and any text that was not written in Japanese was essentially destroyed. In this film, the Japanese did everything in their power to destroy the Malmoe because it was a text that, like Ryu Jung-hwan mentions, embodied the Korean spirit against the Japanese. The dictionary represented not only a form of recording and preserving the Korean language history, but also civil disobedience against their oppressors. In many ways, the Japanese perceived Koreans as uncivilized and primitive in comparison to themselves, yet their measures to suppress Koreans proved to be much more uncivilized. In addition to this, the Japanese forced Koreans to choose Japanese names. And although officially voluntary, low-level officials forced people to switch their family names if they wanted to go to school, register their names anywhere, marriage for example, buy or sell land, or apply for work. In this film, Pan-soo's son mentions that he changed his name, and in class he was called by his Japanese name as opposed to the Korean name given to him by his parents. He lived in constant fear that by not being obedient to the Japanese, his father would be sent to prison, he would be sent to war, and his sister would be abandoned. This inevitably eliminated a crucial part of many Koreans' identities. Pan-soo explains to his children the different meanings of their names and how they are names that they hold dear in their hearts.
순이는요, 그때 어머니가 아버지 감옥소서 나오면 좀 순하게 살았으면 좋겠다고 순이라고 지었어요.
아버지, 근데 나 이제 김순이 아니고 가네란 말이에요. 난 김순이 좋은데.
Even their names were stripped away, and this becomes key in motivating Kim Pan-soo to potentially sacrifice taking care of his own family for a greater purpose, the Malmoi. It was an intense sort of psychological cruelty, said Edwin O. Reischauer, the Harvard historian who was America's ambassador to Japan from 1961 to 1966. It still looms large in the Korean mind. Since under Japanese rule, freedom of speech was non-existent, human rights were taken away and farmland was confiscated under various pretexts. Therefore, the dictionary correlated directly to literacy as it connected culture to language. The creation of this dictionary inspired Kim Pan-soo to learn Hangul and prevent his language from dying out. As he learns how to read, he begins to see the world as if it had changed from black and white to a bright, colorful landscape. Literacy gives him a newfound confidence that he has the capacity to learn, and for many, the dictionary represented this hope that they could improve themselves and resist against the Japanese. Yet being a part of this community was no easy task. Many of those who participated in creating the dictionary or protested were imprisoned or killed. Minu Chol, in particular, decides to betray his comrades because he had hope that he could save his wife who was in prison. She died nevertheless in prison and the Malmoi was lost. Fortunately, Mr. Jo, a truly dedicated person, managed to make a copy by hand of the dictionary, and so not everything was lost. That is one of the best features of this film, because just when everything seems lost, there's a ray of hope. And the dictionary manages to survive, even if tragically some of the characters die in the process. This makes the final scene of the film truly heartwarming as the dictionary is opened by Kim Pan-soo's children. His son becomes a teacher who, unlike his own teachers, acts kindly towards his students, and he and his sister realize the value of that dictionary, since his father died protecting it. When we look at a dictionary, all we see are words and definitions, but we often disregard who took the time to collect these words, to identify variations in pronunciation, and to write several definitions for each word. This film highlights the lives of those involved in the creation of a dictionary, their sacrifices, and their legacy. After watching this film, the dictionary gains a completely new meaning that was not apparent before.